Thank you. I'd like to call the Budget and Public Employees Committee hearing to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Odenberg.
Present.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Alderwoman Saunier. Alderman Aldrich. Chair Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Aldrich.
Present.
Alderwoman Saunier. Alderwoman Saunier. We have 6 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This morning, in our order of business this morning is just one board bill number 1, our city's budget. This morning, we'll be hearing from our excise division, our street department, and our building division. Up first, we have our excise division. Mr. McDonald, you're welcome to join us here at the podium. And just to remind you, we're inviting all department heads to give a brief overview of your department, kind of all the things under your purview, give a short presentation of your budget, and then we'll go into questions. And you'll want to make sure that the microphone is turned on to the green side. I think sometimes we have some trouble with that.
I believe it's on now. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can't.
Okay. All right. I prepared a template and I emailed it to Mr. Santiago and Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy said that he provided the members with a copy of it.
Okay. Is it in our
Thank
Google
you.
Drive? Okay. Was that emailed this morning or is it in our Google Drive? Do we know, Madam Clerk? It's in the Drive. Thank you. Okay. I'll pull it up. Mr. McDonald, you're welcome to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Alderwoman. The first function, the 5 essential functions of excise, the first one is the issuance of liquor licenses. The steps there, the liquor license application, the necessary paperwork regarding the plat and explanation of petition process, investigate the application after submission to authenticate its veracity, schedule an application hearing, conduct the hearing, and if approved, provide the applicant with a list of the next steps to complete the process. The next function is to monitor the premises for compliance with state law and city ordinances through periodic inspections, review of complaints and concerns by citizens, public officials, police, and neighborhood organizations.
Excuse me for interrupting just a moment. Can we put it up? Can we put the presentation? Okay, thank you so much. Okay.
Okay. Function 3, coordinate with other agencies such as the Building Division Problem Property Section, Police Department, Missouri Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Control. Function 4, through an interjurisdictional coordination and cooperation, use the available tools such as a protest petition process, detriment hearings, and emergency condemnation for occupancy where appropriate. 5, ensure liquor control officers are fully aware of a courtroom demeanor and available to testify when needed. Be available for training and discussion with other agencies, neighborhood organizations, and public officials. Okay, then we have our department or our division metrics. 3 accomplishments from the previous fiscal year. We've significantly reduced the backlog of new liquor license applications and scheduled hearings accordingly. 105 new liquor license applications filed, 99 hearings scheduled, 55 establishments open. Coordinated with the Buildings Division, Problem Property Manager, Police Problem Property Officers, Neighborhood Stabilization Improvement Specialist, and Missouri Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Control Agents to identify constant liquor law violators, including those who repeatedly sell liquor without a state or city liquor license, and completed the revocation process as needed. 71 establishments have gone out of business, 24 applications were withdrawn or denied. After vetting and interviewing liquor control officer candidates, we were finally able to hire 2 very qualified people in the 2 remaining full-time positions. As far as the efficiency of the office, everyone works together towards the same goal. Absenteeism is very low, and the staff is committed to helping our citizens and facilitating the process as much as possible. Assisted approximately 1,415 customers during the fiscal year, 842 liquor licenses renewed, 526 permits issued. That would be sidewalk cafes, summer gardens, catering, and picnic licenses. 132 renewals for 3 a.m. permits, 112 renewals for Sunday original package licenses. And I'd say the overall knowledge and expertise of every member of the excise team resonates positively with every applicant, public official, and the general public as a whole. The significantly diminished backlog of liquor license applications has allowed the excise division to move forward as a capable business-like organization. At this point, I would like to say I do get a lot of compliments on the employees up there. They work pretty well with the public. Okay, the total budget that was, we asked for $803,145, and we were allotted $742,000.
I'm sorry, Director McDonald, could you let me know what page you're on?
Well, I don't have the page.
That would be on page 6, excuse me.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, and our budget was $742,416. The $57,000 that we asked for to buy 3 cars was not approved, so that caused a reduction in our budget. Currently, the budget is sufficient to promote the mission of the excise division. We were at authorized strength of 7, with 2 recent hires this week, although they have not officially started. Actually, today is their first day over in the personnel division for orientation for city employees. Okay, additional information pursuant to the new ordinance of 71819 is the excise division will implement a new system for restaurant bars, microbreweries, tap rooms. This will allow these entities to seek a temporary probationary license. The effective date of this ordinance is 6 months from when the ordinance became law, which was April 16th. So it will go into effect October 16th of 2024. The license will be subject to renewal in 90 days and up for final consideration at 180 days. We're working weekly to implementation and plan to have a fact sheet available to the public as soon as possible. We're also exploring technological support to expand our audit capacity. The one thing I did want to bring up about our budget is our estimated revenue estimates, and that deals with basically the permits, is $238,000. But all the actual license fees that are generated for liquor licenses are paid into the license collector's office. That's not, but we're responsible to process those applications, and that is money that the excise division generates. And I haven't heard back from the license collector's office yet as to what the exact number is. I asked some years back, and they said it was kind of not. Basically, they kind of told me it was none of my business. It went into the license collector's office. But I think I'll get it this time.
Could you, I'm sorry, Commissioner, so to summarize here what you're saying, the liquor licenses that are issued by the excise division are
they're approved.
Excuse me.
The actual license, after all the backup information like the occupancy permit, and if it's a restaurant, the health department, those type of things, Once it's approved and they've accomplished all the other steps, then the applicant goes to the license collector's office and essentially purchases their liquor license from the license collector's office.
Okay. And the liquor licensing is issued by the license collector's office?
Yes, ma'am, right.
Okay, and when you asked the license collector's office how much revenue the liquor licensing generated for the city, you were told it, as the excise commissioner, the authorizing entity, that essentially was none of your business, how much revenue?
Not in those exact
terms.
words. I was-
But the data
that
was,
that was years ago, and I just spoke to them a week or so ago, and you have to fill out a form now with the new processes that we have with Oracle and all that. I filled out that form, and I'm just waiting to hear back.
what is the new farm? Excuse me?
It's a form that they generate in the license collector's office that basically, I have to state what I want the information for, and which is obviously to find out how much money we're generating. For the
Why do you have to fill out a form for the license collector's office to ask them a question?
city. It's part of their procedure.
Okay. And, I've never heard of such a thing. Is that just for you, or is that
Oh,
for
no,
the
no.
general public?
Everybody.
You have to fill out a form to ask the license collector's office a question?
If you want information, yes.
Wow,
It's my understanding.
okay. I think it would be really helpful to understand how much revenue the liquor licensing is generating. How much does a liquor license cost?
Well, there's a $450 overall fee
Okay,
when you first apply.
okay,
And then the liquor license itself, let's say a full drink license, by state statute, any municipal or city liquor license can be 1 1/2 times the amount of the state license. So if we're talking about a full drink license, that's another $450. You know,
so is the application paid to the license collector, or is the application paid to the excise?
that's paid to the excise commission.
Okay.
That's part of our projected revenue for the year.
Okay, $450 application, and then another $450, roughly speaking, for the license itself.
For a full drink license.
Okay, and how many liquor licenses are you approving on an annual basis?
I think about 1,200.
1,200, so every liquor license has to go up for renewal every year?
Yes,
Okay, and every renewal generates a $450 fee to the excise commission?
no, not for the renewals, for the
Okay.
new license.
The renewals only get another license fee from the,
Right.
from the
The-
license collector?
Right, and they have to, when they renew, they have to renew through the license collectors.
Okay, so we have around 1,200 liquor licenses in the city of St. Louis?
Mhm.
Okay, so 1,200, roughly speaking, times 450 is $540,000.
It sounds about right.
Okay, and then that would be what the renewal fee to the license collector's office would be. And then on top of that, the new licenses generate another $450 application to your office, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, right.
Do you know what the revenue for the excise commission is right now?
I think it's our projected revenue for fiscal year 2025 was $238,000,
230,000, okay,
38,000.
okay. And so essentially, those two figures combined, 230,000 and roughly $500,000 in renewal and new application fees to license would be what your office costs to run, More or
Well,
less.
it'd be the amount of money that we generate.
correct?
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking about the application fees as well as the licensing fees that go through the license collector's office is roughly what your budget is, $470 million.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, so you're just an office that's providing a service, and the cost is pretty much what it costs. Is there a state law that requires those licenses come from the license collector's office rather than the excise division?
No. No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you know why it goes to the license collector's office as opposed to the excise division?
I don't.
Okay. Mr. Coleman, since you're here, would you mind, on behalf of the committee, requesting of the license collector's office copying Mr. McDonald and ask just how much revenue the liquor licensing is generating on an annual basis? Maybe we could take a look at that. If you have to fill out a form, would you please let us know what the form is all about? Very curious about this form.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to the committee for questions, starting with Vice Chair Alderwoman Boyd.
No question.
Alderman Oldenburg is present, correct?
No questions. Yes, present. No questions.
Okay. Alderwoman Velazquez,
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Saunier,
Nice to see you, Commissioner.
Nice to see you, Alderwoman.
I do have a couple of questions. One, I just want to clarify I understood correctly. So with the 2 new hires this week, you are at full capacity for staffing?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you think that you have all the staff that you need to keep up with the flow of what your office needs to do?
I believe so, yes.
Excellent. And then also, this is following Alderwoman Spencer's question. I understand you said there's a $450 fee when they first apply. Are you also saying every year when they renew, they pay their $450 fee again, or no?
No,
Okay, so just initially when they register.
right, exactly.
Okay, thank
There's a
you.
lot of things involving the plat and petition and
I'm sorry, Mr. Miles, but could you please speak into the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
there's attendant expenses when you initially apply for a license. It has to be investigated. You got the plat and petition, then they have to get the plat and give it to the people so they know in their petition forms so they can fill them out and send them back.
Yeah. Okay. My other question is a little bit about the change in the process. I totally understood why we changed the process, but it was something that I felt a lot of the business community, at least within my ward, I wouldn't say that they were opposed, but they had a lot of questions and concerns, as people always do with change.
Right.
So I just have a couple of questions about just really that bill and how things have been going for you. Has that changed? Like, have you seen people take advantage of it, or has that changed your workflow, or do you predict it to?
It's going to change the workflow because it's going to require 2 hearings for the people that hold a restaurant license when they get a liquor license. It's kind of on a temporary basis or probationary basis for 90 days, and then they continue it for another 90 days. So it's 180 days, almost 6 months.
Yeah.
And then if there's no problems, I'm going to go ahead and make it permanent.
And you were in support of that change. So do you, I guess I'm curious, as someone who operates with the process, and you'll be seeing firsthand how the new process goes, did you find that the previous process was sort of a barrier or created additional work?
It created a lot of work. I was never, I'll be honest with you, I was never a fan of the signature process. I was aware of it, but I worked for state liquor control, and it was mostly enforcement. In and out of town, different, when they have problems in the country, that type of thing, then we'd go and take care of it. But I knew about the petition process, but I'll be honest with you, personally, I was never a fan of it.
Yeah. No, I really appreciated your office just being really innovative. I found and I know the administration worked with you as well, and I know Alderman Ryan did as well, but I really liked the innovative approach to a problem. I liked that your office was very involved and that your input was there.
Yeah.
And I like that we just kind of thought outside of the lines a little bit about how it could work, because I mean, I see it all the time with smaller businesses, or sometimes with business owners who speak a different language. It's just an additional barrier, and they're already a restaurant, it's already hard for them to operate. So I really want to commend you for being willing to even, put your voice out there and say you support doing the process in a new.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. When we try to be as flexible as we can with everything, because people. This whole deal is about people trying to go in business and make a living.
Yeah.
And it's not, nobody's trying to pull any kind of shenanigans or anything. They're just trying to make a living, and
Yeah.
that's their chosen profession.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just, this is not to you directly, this is to my colleagues and to the public. I just think it's important that we hold these stands consistently. I think Plaid and Petition is a difficult and challenging process, and now it's only in place for one more thing, that those who are most vulnerable amongst us need for housing. And so I would just hope that we would all hold, like, hey, we have to have conversations about what we can do and how we can change this process, because
Sure.
it is a barrier and it's difficult to get through. And government is supposed to regulate but not eliminate. So just thank you and throwing that out there for my colleagues.
Well, thank you very much.
Alderman Aldridge? Okay. Mr. McDonald, along the same lines, the new law that went into effect, or that was signed, or passed by the Board of Aldermen, signed by the mayor, it's not in effect until
October 16th.
October 16th.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so those changes won't take place until October 16th.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at that time, we envisioned restaurants, for example, to be able to come in without the Plaid and Petition and open, but not until that time. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Along the same lines as my colleague from the 7th, can you describe some of the enhanced mechanisms of addressing and dealing with some of the problematic liquor owners? As you know, we're having some issues in the 8th Ward. We've had issues throughout the city. And kind of, if you could, I still am struggling with exactly how the new bill will expedite and make more efficient the process of revoking a liquor license when needed.
Well, the only thing in the new bill that gives the excise commissioner, whoever that is, the ability to close a place up for between 48 to 72 hours, but it has to be exigent circumstance, not like noise or something like that. You have to be something that's a threat to public safety. I think we had the last time that came up, and it was one of the things there was a place, and I don't believe they ever did get a liquor license. It was on Cherokee Street, and they had a double shooting in the place. And then when we looked into it, we found out that the guy who was actually running it was also a convicted felon. So there was something like that. If they had a liquor license and this was in effect, they would have been closed for between 48 to 72 hours.
Okay.
And then bring them in and, tell them that they have to straighten up.
In that case, they did not have a liquor license,
No,
but they were operating and selling alcohol on
Yes.
a very regular basis. And we were powerless, it seemed.
no, the ordinance, the current ordinance, and it has not changed with the new law. It's, let me see, section 14. Section 1403. Get it.
Under the current law,
I think it's 010, but let me get it here. Yeah, here it is. 14.03.010, police department is responsible for the enforcement of the liquor ordinance. And the other thing that's occurred with the new law is, and I think I think it's correct. I'm getting a lot of static from my office because they don't think I took a hard line position. They've eliminated the firearms and the arrest powers. It really wasn't arrest power. There was city ordinance stuff, which is dealt with mostly by a summons. It's not.
I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald, I'm having a hard time hearing you. So,
Sure. The new law limits the activity of the excise division in terms of enforcement. We can take action in terms of if there's a violation, we can have a hearing and take what I call like civil redress, something of that nature, to suspend or revoke the license. But the idea of going out and having people out with guns in places, the problem that we had with that, I never knew until I started here where it was, but they never had a firearms policy. They never had a requirement to qualify with a firearm. They never had a requirement to qualify once a year. When I was with the state, we had to go to the Highway Patrol Academy. We actually had to stay there for like a total of 7 weeks.
Do you mean, excuse me, do you mean the excise commission employees?
Yeah,
So I'm having a hard time understanding exactly where you're going. Are you suggesting that the employees do the arresting?
well, they had, it was in the old ordinance
Okay.
that they had the power of arrest. Now, I didn't understand that. But I was not a bit opposed to just making it how it is under the new law, where they're not armed. You know, you can't have people out there, the most well-intentioned people. You can't have them out there with guns if there's no firearms policy and no requirement for any kind of training. And there
You're
never
talking about the
was.
city employees and not the bar owners, is that correct?
Yeah, the city, yeah, the excise employees.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems here is the disconnect between the excise commission and the liquor, and the police department, the enforcement entity.
Yeah.
You know, in that particular case, the gentleman, I believe, had a state liquor license. And so he used.
I don't know. I don't recall.
Okay. Well, I think,
Yes, ma'am.
well, I mean. Of course, but. Madam Alderwoman from the 7th, would you like to weigh in?
Sorry, Excise Commissioner. I think what I hear you saying and what I experienced when it happened and what you just named, the disconnect between the Excise Commission and Police Department, it seemed like there was some kind of change in the ordinance where at one point, sort of like how a building inspector can go out and observe what's happening and then take later actions with the police department, they wanted, I think that Commissioner McDonald is saying, for the employees to have that benefit, not necessarily to do the arresting power, but to have the ability to go and check out the scene, because a lot of times, as soon as people see the police come, they stop their activity and clean up. So when this incident happened, when the ward and the community was very much going every day to observe, and even I had stopped by, we found this issue repetitively of like, you know, once they see police coming and see that presence, they're going to clean up their activity, whereas a constituent or a resident might be there, or even an employee who could just observe, not arrest, not do anything, but now the police have the authority to do the enforcement because they have the evidence as opposed to like hearsay.
Right, exactly.
But I think the issue, thank you, Alderwoman, but as the commissioner is pointing out, it's already law that the police department has that authority to enforce. Problem is, as you're pointing out, that they're cleaning their act up when the police arrive, and the new ordinance doesn't change that. The police department still has that authority. The problem is that the police department isn't proactively necessarily going out and enforcing the liquor licensing laws. And we need to have, I believe, somebody in the police department dedicated to liquor enforcement.
If I may address that,
Sure.
for, I'm probably, I would say, since the 1930s up until maybe the 1980s, early 90s, the police department always had a vice division, and in that vice division, they had, I mean, there's some things that they, just as times went on, they had to kind of phase out, like the morality squad, but they had a gambling squad and a liquor squad. And the liquor squad would go out and, you know, they were obviously in plain clothes, undercover people. They would go out and make cases on these places. And in recent years, they still had a couple of people. The one officer Luther Hall that got hurt in those riots, and Lou Nays, they would go out with our people, and they're in plain clothes, and they would actually make arrests. And our people would be with them, and they'd make arrests, and I guess probably release the people on a summons, but at least they know they were arrested. That's something that's desperately needed, is a liquor squad. And it doesn't have to
In
be.
the police department.
It doesn't have to be 100 people. You can, I don't recall it ever being any more than like
Right.
three people.
Because to the point of the Alderman from the 7th, if we're just sort of being responsive when issues come out, the bar owner is able to kind of clean up and pretend like they're not selling alcohol, for example.
Right.
And we're not actually being able to enforce them. Okay, so what I'll do is maybe turn it back over to the committee for additional questions. Alderwoman Boyd?
Yeah, I think what Miles is saying is correct, but I think what the issue is, I can only speak in my community. They're not abiding by the laws in regards, because I received a list of people that are running establishment without liquor license. And so they know you all work 9 to 5. So they're doing it after you all are off, 1. 2, we had somebody that said they were running a banquet center and they were on Facebook advertising a hooky bar, whatever that is.
Yeah, hookah lounge.
Right, they were doing a whole thing. And so the problem is, we keep saying we need the police to do A, B, and C. We have no police.
Yeah, I know.
So if you don't have the manpower to do what Miles is correct, they did have a team of 3 officers, I think, and if I'm wrong, Miles, you tell me, that worked with John McLaughlin, and that's what that team did. They went to those places after hours because they knew these people were doing this after hours. But we have, this new thing that they're trying to push with the liquor license. I'm already dealing with the issues in my community of people that are not abiding by the laws. And so to sit up here and make these assumptions, are we going to have the police to come to clean this up? No, we don't, because we don't have the manpower. And so that puts your people in a bad situation. And so now my question is, are you looking at to have them work after 5? Because that's when these people are doing this. They're doing it after you all close the office. We have a board that I know does not have a liquor license. After 5 on Fridays and Saturdays and Sunday, they're running full speed because they know you all aren't going to come. So that's my question.
I don't, we can, I guess. The only problem we've got, Alderwoman, is our office is not what you'd call very young.
Right. I
they're-
get it.
They're like in between
Right,
55 and 60 is the average age,
right.
except me, I'm older. But they don't, they're just not there. I mean, they're just not, and they don't fit into to those kind of crowds. What we've been trying to do is working with John McLaughlin and the Buildings Division, is if there is a situation and they're in violation, they usually ask the problem property police officer of that area to go and give them a summons. And once they give them a summons, then the Buildings Division can issue what they call an emergency condemnation, which means
Okay.
the place is closed.
Okay,
And sometimes they have a right of a 10-day appeal, but there are certain circumstances where they can't appeal it at all. It's just closed.
right. And so that's my frustration. We keep painting this picture
Right.
like it's going to be, oh, this is going to be great. No, it's not, because you don't have the manpower to put these teams together to do what you're saying. I get what you're saying. You don't have young people that are these people that can inspect these facilities. But the issue is in my community, I can't speak for nobody else's community. These people are not, they doing whatever they can to not abide by the law. So if that means they open after you close, then that's what they gonna do. That means that when I get a call, I have to call John McLaughlin and say, I need police at this site because they're running full steam ahead. So that's what we're up against. So that's why I'm just questionable, because it puts you all in a sticky position and it's not fair to you all, because you don't have the, as we had the labor, the people to do the hours that we did. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that sometimes you got to outthink the crooks, because they going to always figure a way to beat the system.
Well, this emergency condemnation process, when it works, it's pretty successful. We did some years ago, right after I first started, down on Washington Avenue, the places where they tried to get a license and they couldn't. So then they just open up anyway, and then they got a summons for selling liquor without a state or a city license. And it gets to a point sometimes where if you sell liquor without a state license, it's a felony. Now, a lot of times it doesn't really resonate too much with people, because there's no punishment. The only thing I've ever heard in my life, I don't know if you are familiar with Graylin Nowden. He was a state liquor agent, and they sent him up to some place in northern Missouri where a guy would not stop selling liquor. And the judge up there, after about the third time Graylin caught him, he gave him 7 years in the state penitentiary. I mean, that's a heck of a consequence to be, for something like that. Of course, then they did threaten to kill Graylin after that, so, it was, but this process I'm talking about, with the emergency condemnation, it hasn't been used a lot. And that's why we're trying to get it coordinated with everybody else in the city government that can impact the situation. And it's working, I think. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any other questions from the committee? Alderman Aldridge? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderwoman Saunier.
It's just kind of a follow-up to what Alderwoman Boyd mentioned. I think it's great that you guys are at full capacity for staffing, but I do think it's important that we have the power to do what we plan to do. And I thought the policy was great and the bill was great, but I think Alderwoman Boyd's point about the enforcement is great. And I know that police capacity is what police capacity is. We all know what's happening. Has there ever been conversations about what it might look like for someone in the department, or I don't know, like to have a position that is dedicated to working later or doing special inspection times, or has there ever been any conversation about what it would look like, or is the plan right now we just rely on kind of the police to carry that out?
We kind of rely on the police to carry that out. And it's going to get, after October, they're not going to have any kind of arrest powers. It's just going to simply be, if they observe something, to write them up and have a hearing on them. And I'm not going to lie to you, they're a little bit reluctant, some of them, to go out without a gun. There was a case it was in the past year, where 2 of our people went out to a place and they recorded it, and you could hear the automatic weapons fire, like very close. So, that's a pretty serious situation for people that have no training along those lines.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. I think the enforcement piece is just critical. We can, at this board, in this body, write the laws, pass the laws, but making sure that we have the tools to enforce them is a critical component here. I do think it would be very, very helpful if the excise division had some staff that could work outside of the traditional hours to at least document activity that is outside of what they're licensed to do. And so those summonses could be, issued outside of the police department, just to kind of shore up that, that piece here. So I realize that your division is maybe not equipped right now to do that, but I think, thinking creatively, we should be trying to implement a strategy that looks like that.
Okay.
With that, your budget reflects almost exactly what you requested, with the exception of that additional vehicle for your fleet. And so, given that, there's really no controversy, in your budget, at least as far as your. It looks like Alderwoman Boyd has one additional question, so I'll turn it over to her.
I'm sorry, Miles.
That's all right, Alderman.
Would it help if everyone had a state liquor license? Would it help your department?
Everyone.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
everybody has to have a state and a city.
They have to have a state and city?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, that's what I was trying to figure out. All right.
Thank you. All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Okay.
We appreciate you coming this
Right.
morning.
Well, I'd like to thank the Honorable Board for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delay us, but maybe we could take, I think it'll probably be fairly quick, right? 5 or 10 minutes. Say that again? I think we'll take a 15-minute recess to observe the flag raising for Pride Month. We didn't realize there was a scheduling conflict, that it was scheduled during our hearing this morning, so I think we'll reconvene at 11:30. 11:40. Okay, Madam Clerk, I'd like to reconvene, call the Budget and Public Employees Committee hearing back to order. With that, this morning, again, we just have one item of business on our calendar for today, Board Bill number 1, our city's budget. This morning, we are hearing from the Street Department, who's already come before us, to just come before the committee again. I think there were some outstanding questions from the community, from the committee, and maybe some additional information that the director and the Refuse Department wanted to share with the committee before the board fully determines its recommendations to the Board of E&A. Director Williams, good morning. Thank you for being so accommodating as we took a short break to observe the raising of the pride flag at City Hall this morning. Okay, the Street Department's budget, as we have discussed, starting on page 202. Director, you're welcome to, if you don't mind, just for the folks at home and those tuning in to identify yourself and any staff members you have that are with you to support you this morning.
Got you. First, good morning, afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. We did schedule you for morning. Our
It's
apologize
okay.
for that.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to come before the board once again, or the committee once again, to discuss the FY25 budget for the Streets Department. My name is Bethany Williams, Director of Streets, and I have with me here today Randy Breitenfeld, who is the Commissioner of the Refuse Division. It was our understanding from our last meeting that you all had some questions or needed further clarification on some of the items in our refuse budget. So I wanted to make sure that we made ourselves available so that we can answer any of your questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Director. Let's see, just by way of review here, the Street Department, okay, starting on page 202, we've got the Director of Streets. We have a whole lot under your purview. Can you just remind us real quickly?
Yes, so we currently, in the Streets Department, it comprises of 5 different divisions. The Director's Office is 510. Then you have City Towing Division, Traffic Division, Street Maintenance, and then the Refuse Division.
Okay, and let's see.
So if we go from the division that we had questions, that will be 516,
Let's see here.
the Refuse Division, and I believe it starts on page, hold on.
Okay.
Page 222.
222,
Yes.
okay. And just to remind the committee and those tuning in, the Refuse Division had a request of 32.9 million.
Yes.
Proposed budget of 27.2, which is a slight increase over last year's budget of 26,000. Excuse me, 26 million.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And that was because we were looking at being more proactive, taking more ownership and making sure that we had the appropriate funds to replace cans. We added a couple positions to the budget, things of that nature is what made the difference, the increase in what we proposed for FY25.
Okay. And so if I'm looking here, the department total, the request of 32 million. Okay, there's a significant, the biggest one, transfer station refuse pickup. There's a big discrepancy there.
So if you look at it's 3 items that are different from what we proposed in our FY25 budget was the recycling of tires, and that is because we've seen an uptick. We've been working with alders to do ward cleanups or tire pickups in their areas. Some of the wards are doing, like they put dumpsters out and they have people that are coming and they can drop off their tires. And so our part of the deal is that we will dispose of them because it helps us get tires up off of our city streets and in our alleys. And because of that, we're seeing a major uptick in the number of tires that we're bringing in on an annual basis. So that is why we saw the increase there from the 2,000 200,000, which was recommended in 2024, going up to 500,000.
Okay, so Director, so there's a couple, yeah, I mean, so looking at our personnel here, last year, or so the request was 14 million and we're looking at 11.8. For the drivers, I know we've seen, can you describe the increase in wages for drivers? I just want to make sure that when we're looking at the personnel budget, which is significantly lower than what was requested from the department, that given the increase in salary, that we still are going to have enough staff because the increase in total amount for that department is not
the same.
huge. And so I want to make sure, so if you could describe kind of what those raises were for the drivers. I know you worked hard to make sure that there was some level of increase there for those folks as we were seeing a lot of turnover.
Right. So 2 years ago, the Streets Department, really it started with Refuse Division in our negotiations with their union reps, but then it kind of expanded to HEO 1, 2s, utility workers, a number of positions across the city that saw some historical raises. Where now currently our HEO 2 drivers, the starting salary is $44,252 roughly. We've also put in an incentive where after 5, 10, and 15 years, they will get increases in salary. That's for retention purposes, as well as the union. We've agreed. So every year, the union sits and negotiates with personnel. Myself is at the table, and a representative from the mayor's office, and we negotiate what does the contract look like that we move into with the employees. So the thing, most of the employees at Refuse are covered underneath the union, and this is one of which is our HEO 2 drivers. I think the question that we're all having here, or we may be seeing, is you see on the budget for FY24, we had 66 budgeted positions. And in FY25, you see 57 budgeted positions for HEO 2. HEO 2s are our route drivers. And so not to say that we will not be able to cover the operations of the city and continue to pick up trash. What this will mean is that we will continue to work employees on their off days. And because of that, we have so many other things that we're putting in place. We just put an RFP that we're working on negotiations with to do route evaluation, to identify if some of these same routes that we've been using for years, if those routes are still needed. We know that homes have been demolished across the city. We know that homes have been transferred from a 4-family to 1 big home, or children have moved away. So the census has told us also that the numbers of people that we have in our cities. So what this RFP and what this study will do will tell us exactly where our dumpsters currently are, as well as evaluate our routes to make sure that we're maximizing the service that we're providing. With that, we will see a change from the 55 traditional routes that we have per day. I think the question came into play when you see 57 drivers, the cushion that it gives us. So on average now, currently, we're blessed to have roughly 40 to 45 drivers a day. That's the average per week of drivers that we get. And when you see that, you have a number of drivers that are on some type of leave, sick leave, vacation, family medical, whatever the leave may be. And so that puts us at a place where we have roughly 45 drivers on average per week. So every week I try to average out how many drivers I have. And so we see anywhere from 40 to 45 drivers a day in a week's time. And with that, knowing that we have 55 routes, it puts us at a place where on a daily basis, we're starting in the hole of maybe 10 routes that are not covered. And so that's when we use our Wednesdays and our Saturdays and Sundays to help us pick up that extra or those additional routes that we don't have covered. So when you see the decrease, it just really takes away our additional cushion that we have, that we can continue to employ drivers in and get them in. And personnel has been working with us. I think last week or this week, we have like 3 or 4 new drivers that are starting. And we have a new list where we can hire more drivers from that list as well. So we're training them as we can get them in. It's just the fact of making sure that we have the space for them.
Okay, Commissioners, so these HEO2s requested 66, and there's 57 allocated in this budget, right? And those are the drivers that drive the heavy equipment operator 2,
Yes.
correct?
Those are the heavy equipment operator 2 are the drivers that pick up our routes. So we have different levels of drivers because of the size of the fleet, and they do different functions. So your HEO1s, they're more of your maintenance. They're your bulk pickup that you see that go out once a week, or they go out every day, but hit different routes every week. And then you see our HEO2s are the ones that have our 55 dedicated routes per day. They're the ones that are doing more of that route driving. And so that's the difference in those categories of people. Now, what I will say is since our last meeting, I know that we had some discussion about the decrease in the number. And in talking with Paul Payne and Nancy Cross, we will be able to move some of the positions around in the budget, because if you notice the budget, 150 is what we had in the budget from FY24.
Yes.
And then, so we're keeping the same number in the budget, and we have agreed that we could work within that, but working with personnel where maybe I may not need all 17 of these HEO1s, and I will be able to reallocate those positions and funds to increase HEO2s in the future if I need them.
Okay, so you're going to take some of these HEO1s and move them into the HEO2 so we can have some additional drivers. I just really hate that we think about our drivers having, in order to fill the duties of the 55 routes citywide, having to work more than 5 days a week.
I do too.
I'm sure you do.
If I could get drivers back to a 5-day-a-week pickup schedule, I would love that.
Okay.
But it's not the fact that the number of drivers that we have, we're just seeing, as we get a list, we're bringing them in. So say if we get a list of, say, 6 or 7 drivers, we may have 4 that accept the interviews, and then you have 2 that stay the course of, once they make it through their work and test period and things of that nature. So we are working diligently to get more drivers in, making them feel comfortable that they stay, that they, that's how you got to the 5, 10, 15 year. I think that's an incentive that we've never had before that helps us keep and retain drivers as well.
Okay, so just real quickly, just for, you mentioned the new salary is $42,000 starting for a driver. What was the previous salary for that position?
I want to say like 39, maybe
39?
maybe 40. I'm not quite sure. I can look that up in the budget. The book, the pay salary.
Okay, yeah, I think it would be helpful to understand what the new salaries are, and then workers who have been with us for some time, if you could help us understand what the increase for retention for those drivers that have been around for some time, to make sure that we're doing our best to retain those city workers.
So personnel sent us a list of all of the drivers, and that may be the best place for us to get that information from, because they sent us a list to say all of these drivers are 5-year, 10-year, 15. They send us a memo when the employee reaches their 5, 10, and 15-year status that they receive those increases.
Okay. So Director, if I'm hearing you correctly, if we move some of these HEO1s into the HEO2s, we could be better positioned to cover
So the
assuming fully
salary-
staffed,
Yeah, so one thing to realize there is that the salary is different.
is different, right?
For HEO 1 and a HEO 2, so it may not be an even swap of 1 to
Sure.
1, the
Can-
ratio of that.
Can you get the committee, what we'd like to do is consider fully staff, at least budgeting to fully staff the HEO2 positions, those 66 drivers. If you could get us a figure, work with Mr. Coleman, I'm going to just kind of request that he's on, involved in this kind of request to calculate the difference, the additional funds needed to move, as we discussed previously, some of those HEO 1s over to the HEO 2s. So we'll need to get the sort of salary difference and what that additional cost for this department would be to fully staff that HEO 2 position, to have enough drivers to fully accommodate
So
what's going on here.
You're asking me to calculate what the difference will be to increase the budget from 67 to 66?
Correct.
And what would the decrease be from the HEO 1 line?
Right, so in other words, we just need the differential of salary for the HEO 1s and HEO 2s, so we can budget to fully staff those, your drivers.
I can do that for
Okay,
you.
thank you. I'd like to turn it over to the committee for questions. Alderwoman Boyd,
I have no questions.
Alderman Oldenburg,
None here, thank you, Chair.
okay. Alderwoman
None here.
Velazquez,
None here.
Alderwoman Saunier. No questions, okay. Any other members of the board have questions? Okay. So Director, I have a couple of additional questions here. With the recycling tires, if we don't, so last year we had budgeted 200,000 to be able to, as you pointed out, get rid of those tires. Did we use all $200,000 or did we exceed that amount? Do you know what we actually spent in recycling those tires?
Randy, do you know the final number or where we stand currently?
I think
I
it
can
would
get the bill.
Okay, I think it would be very important to understand that. Director, as you pointed out, being proactive on the tire front. I know tires litter so many of our neighborhoods, and if residents are, and those neighborhood cleanups are able to collect them, we should make sure that we are fully budgeted to dispose of them, for, especially if the refuse department is willing to do that on behalf of our community organizations.
Right.
So I want to make sure if we could get that bill, what we paid last year, that would be really helpful. And lastly, this transfer station refuse pickup, the requested amount is 13 million, and it looks like we've allocated 9.7. What is the difference there? Can you describe what the transfer station refuse pickup is? Is that the disposal fees?
The disposal fees, and what we do, we estimate.
Okay.
With our new contract that we have in place, we know that we anticipated what it will cost us for the year. We can go back in and look year to date, what we've paid, and then I can tell you further from there. I think we just always increase this line, and Randy can maybe speak to, we just always kind of bump it up every year because we know that the transfer fees kind of go up. It's contracted, but because of the amount of that we're disposing, could cause us increase in cost. But we can look at what a year-to-date cost is on that and then let you know where do we stand from there.
Okay, I think it would be very, very helpful, and I'm looking at Ryan again on this, I apologize for that, to pull you back into this, but to understand what the kind of monthly cost of the transfer station refuse pickup is, that's just such a very large discrepancy. And what we're budgeting for the refuse, the transfer station refuse pickup is less than what we paid out last year, and we know that the cost of garbage disposal has been increasing. And so I do not want to put us in a position where we're negative on that front. We've got to fully budget for that. And my last question, I lied when I said lastly on the last one. But if we could,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I did just want to point out that our actual from end of FY '23 was less than what we're requesting for FY '25. We don't know what '24 is now because we're still currently in that that schedule. But I can look at a year-to-date, like I said, and give you those.
Okay, that'd be helpful, and then we can kind of better estimate what we need to make sure that we have there. And lastly, the alley cameras, is that in your budget here? Where are those? I see we have public safety and health cameras. I know having alley cameras to catch illegal dumpers has been pretty helpful, especially those rare instances where those drivers have license plates. But it certainly has aided us in being able to address one of the issues that really plague our neighborhoods, and that the illegal dumping. Where are the cameras in this line item? I looked for them and I saw this public safety and health cameras. I don't know if that's it.
The EIU. So I can speak to what we have currently going is our ARPA funds. Those cameras are operated under the environmental investigation unit.
Okay.
And so ARPA dollars have given us the ability to purchase over 300 additional cameras that, as well as a piece of equipment that they're able to go in and install and replace current cameras and install new cameras.
Okay.
We're looking at updating the system so that they don't have to go out in the field. They can do more work from the police headquarters, identifying and reading cameras, more Wi-Fi accessible, instead of having to go out and pull a data chip and reading information from there. So we are looking at improving some of those needs through the ARPA dollars that we've allocated towards that service.
Okay, thank you, Director. That's really helpful and good to know. Do you have, do we have an estimated time when have they arrived? Have those cameras already been delivered to the city?
We've received, I want to say the first 200 we just approved, which was like last year, I want to say. And then we just approved another, I think it's 150, and we only can purchase so many at a time because of the data chips and the service and the updates to the software. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and put software or cameras and software up that will not be current and up to date. So we're kind of purchasing as we go along.
Okay, thank you. All right, I see some of the committee have some follow-up questions. I'll go back through the committee in order of seniority. Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question is, because I think we're sending a false narrative to our community about these cameras, and people feel that cameras fix everything. One, we don't have enough EIU officers to even do the work that needs to be done. That's up with all these plans, and we don't have the manpower to ensure that these plans can be proceeded with. And so two, now the people that are doing the dumping in these alleys are smarter. So they have the mask on, they have trucks with no license plates, and 9 times out of 10, because I work closely with EIU, they're saying we can't get anything because they got a mask on. We have no way of identifying them. And so what happens, our seniors are frustrated because the dumping is continuously. So that's my frustration with EIU. You don't have the manpower that we need to do what needs to happen. And then two, putting the cameras up, you still need staff to make it happen. And we don't have those people to do that, to post those cameras up in those alleys. And so the people are getting so bold and disrespectful. They'll do it in front of the camera. We had a person empty a whole house in front of the camera. So they don't care about the cameras. And so I just think that as a city, we need to be more creative and productive on how we address these issues and the disrespect they have for us as the city of St. Louis. And then I keep hearing that we have hired contracted people to pick up the debris from dumping. And so I'm just trying to figure out how many have been hired, how many contractors have been hired, and where are they at? Where are these people at that's picking this stuff up? And so those are the two concerns that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
So I can't speak to the enforcement unit piece. Their budget comes under the refuse department, but how they operate, I do believe they send a monthly report out. We can make sure that you all get that to show their services that they're doing and their reporting. But as far as the RFP that went out for the contractor to assist with bulk pickup, that contract is in negotiations at this time. So they haven't even started yet.
Okay. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Saunier.
Sorry, hi, Director Williams.
Hello.
I just had a question about your, and you actually talked about this a little bit at my town hall, and people found it just helpful to know. Just some of the way that your department uses the part-time employees. I'm just curious about some of those differences, and I was looking at your specific budget line item and was wondering if maybe if you had the salary raises, is that why maybe you don't need as many part-time, or just questions about that part?
So the per performer employees that we use in the streets department are mainly our crossing guards at our schools. We just put out, well, not just, I guess earlier this year, we put out posted a job for crossing guards. We had a total of 2 that came in, well, 2 on the list. 1 came in for an interview but didn't make the cut. And so we normally work with principals at schools that need crossing guards, and we encourage them, if they have someone in mind that they want to serve as a crossing guard, to apply for those jobs. We also use per performer in our traffic division, which helps us with some of our telecommunicating dispatching. That's what they do. They dispatch for the city, or for the streets department, traffic division, as well as city toll. So that's the limit of those funds. So we really don't have per performer employees in any other roles outside of those right now currently for the department.
And you think what you have is sufficient? You'd be okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Aldrich. Okay. Any members not on the committee want to recognize Alderwoman Schweitzer and Alderman Browning are here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for allowing us to be here and giving us an opportunity to ask questions. I'm just listening today, but appreciate all the questions that have been asked.
Thank you. Director, I just want to commend Commissioner Flake for his testimony on kind of thinking broadly and more comprehensively about how we can be proactively addressing the conditions of our roads and providing the committee some information regarding what that would actually cost, that $12.5 million estimate to keep our roads paved and updated on a regular basis really pales in what we're able to really provide the street department. And so we're really grateful for that testimony last week. And with that, we do appreciate you coming back. We'll work with you on those few figures. Just by way of summary, we'll talk about moving those HEO1s over to HEO2s. We'll talk about, you'll get us a figure for what we actually paid out on the tire recycling front. And then you'll also get us a figure year to date on the cost of the transfer station refuse pickup, so we can make sure the estimated amount here in the budget reflects what we think we'll actually be paying out this year.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we will continue to try to be a proactive department and bring these items forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Director. Okay, it looks like, we had invited the Sarah Russell from SEMA to come back. We are a little more pressed for time than we imagined, but I thought what we could do here, I hate to ask you to do a lightning fast, just kind of summary of kind of where we're at and what we're doing. Your role is so important, Director. We appreciate you coming back before us. You know, this committee has heard from, I think, 34 departments at this point. We're doing an excellent job. We've been going really in-depth, spending a lot of time in each. And when you were before us last week, as we pointed out, there was just some availability issues here, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to just present to the committee in a lightning fast, no pun.
Lightning round, all right.
No pun as far as the lightning and the storms are concerned.
No, and I appreciate the opportunity to come back and speak with you again. I know some people have had varying comments on what this experience is for them, and I want to tell you, for me, this is more of a state of the union than a parole hearing. So for me, this is my opportunity to really speak to you and have the transparency to a lot of our community that tunes into this as well. So I appreciate that.
And you cover emergencies across the board. So, I think a lot of our residents have really kind of noticed the new, the notifications, the sirens, the text messaging, the phone calls. I want to commend you for having the number of text messages I received in the last storm was significantly lower than the previous couple storms. I think working out some of those kinks certainly made a difference in my quality of life. So we appreciate you hearing feedback and moving forward and
that is dependent on the storm. Some of these storms getting so well refined by the National Weather Service that it actually, the return is more notifications, but more detailed. So it will be an ongoing thing, but hopefully everyone's experience becomes better and better as we go along. So I think the couple of highlights that we have from our budget this year, one, as always, is staffing. I do have the majority of the staff here today. You're seeing some of the members that weren't here last week, but we have Jody and we have Sam. Bridget is out ill today and Nevena is away, but this is our staff for emergency management. These are the people that plan to respond, to plan for, to mitigate, to do recovery for all disasters within the city. So it's a great team. It's a great mission that we have to fulfill for the city. We do that with partnerships, and that is difficult as well. We also do it with budget. So I want to be clear on that there are expenses within a disaster that are incurred by each individual department. So it's not that we're looking to say we need this big SEMA rainy day fund with all of this extra money just laying around. We do have those needs, not quite as severe as maybe it was sounding when we were talking on last week, but we do work with everyone in the city depending on how they're impacted during the disaster. So specifically to our budget, staffing is always an ongoing issue. I believe you had asked for some additional information. We did pull some comparisons. So if I can note, the Baltimore Office of Emergency Management, they have 19 positions. They currently have 14 filled and 1 part-time filled, but their chart is for 19 people.
Okay, and remember, Baltimore, I think, has a total population of 700,000. What is the population of Baltimore?
The population that I just pulled up from 2022 was 569,931.
Okay, so roughly double the city of St. Louis. Okay.
A little bit, yes. Austin, again, a bigger city. They have 18 full-time. Memphis, which again is roughly 50% greater than the city of St. Louis, has 9.
Okay.
But they have Shelby County, which they work with as well, and they have 16. So the city and the county there work in a more traditional role, whereas here we do not.
Okay.
Now, we do have some functions that we spoke to that are regional, but at the same time, using our Convention and Visitor Center or St. Louis annual report, looking at the numbers of people that are visiting the city, those are also members of the population that we have to plan and be able to provide for. So it's not just the people that live in the city. Of course, they're nearest and dearest to my heart as neighbors and residents, but people that work here, and then those who visit us, whether it's for a week for a convention or a weekend to see the Cardinals, looking at all of our sports and venue partnerships that bring in hundreds of thousands of people. Those are other people that we have to take into consideration and be able to respond to if something happens surrounding or just when some of those people are here in the city. So that's really my comparison. I think those are the most pertinent. Looking at Memphis and Baltimore as a comparison, while the population is a little bit different, going through their org chart, really shows a lot of what I spoke to when I went through the presentation with the proposed org chart positions that I had requested versus what we do have now.
Okay.
And then the other, you know, the $49,000 for professional service was the other thing that I had put in that was not included in the budget so far. And that is for professional services to help get us up to speed with some of the planning considerations. If we can use a contractor to come in and help do some of the legwork, that quite honestly, Sam, the emergency management specialist, or myself are the two people that can do that detail.
Okay.
Looking at refining the plans, what should be there, what we need to update. We should visit these plans once every year, and I can tell you, one of our plans we rewrote in 2016, and every time I've tried to go in and start to update it, we had a flood of 22, we had flood of 19, we had flood of 15, and Stanley Cup, and all of these other things. And like I noted last week, the complete staff turnover. No one seated here from SEMA in the gallery was here before COVID.
Yeah, except you.
Except me.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. So one of the things, I just want to make sure the committee was aware, that our emergency management system is staffed, significantly lower than some of our peer cities as far as a per capita basis. The request budgeted, the proposed budget is significantly, roughly half of what the request was. We do rely on our emergency management system in emergencies. We don't think about you often. Sorry for that. That's probably a good thing, but you are there, of course, when an emergency hits. And so we should be thinking about you year round and sure that you have what you need. If there was one thing you mentioned in the last budget hearing, Sarah, was that you were in a position to have to go out during emergencies and make purchases. You don't have a contingency fund. So when the floodings happened, you were at Family Dollar using your own credit card to make purchases as opposed to being able to do that through the city. Is that a line item that we could easily identify here?
I don't think it's a line item necessarily that could be easily identified. I think for us in the past, it's been that capability of we've never had a credit card. And I know that that's an issue, managing and being responsible stewards of such a tool. But in an emergency, that becomes an issue.
Okay.
Previous years ago, there was something that came up and we had an agreement with Lowe's, and the supply commissioner called Lowe's and said, give Sarah what Sarah needs. And that was it. It was a little different on an election day when we needed hand sanitizer and paper towels. So, we can't go back to the office and order hand sanitizer and paper towels. It was easy to go a block, buy it, and then get reimbursed for it. But I'll tell you, I did not have a credit card for many years, and I've gotten one again in my name solely because I have to make purchases.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that you do that. Do we have any questions from the committee? Alderwoman Boyd.
And if I can point out just real quick too, we do also work within special events within the city. Mm-hmm. So anytime there's a large festival or event that happens in the city, we have a role in that too. And there's been years in Mardi Gras when we've been deployed on scene supporting police, fire, and EMS for such a special event where we show up at 5 a.m. and we don't demobilize until after midnight the next day. Mm. So we see 2 or 3 shifts of police, fire, and EMS responders that come through and are able to change out. But because of the way our staff is constructed, we don't have that opportunity. If there's only 2 of us that are really operational boots on the ground, can drive the truck, can operate the systems that we need to do for emergency management and be those relationships on scene, we don't have much more to pull from. And that's true in disasters as well. So we talked about that as well. The first 20 or so hours, I was the emergency management function until we got back in.
We really appreciate your work. I'd like to maybe after these hearings to explore what a more constructive relationship with St. Louis County could look like, surrounding areas to kind of combine, the metropolitan area in a response system. so that we can maybe share some of that load and some of those bigger events that happen in the St. Louis area.
There is some regional work, I will say that, and they are more than willing to try and come and help. It's just the fact that if I have 6 people come from the city to help us and we're only bringing 1 person to the table, that's still not a great setup.
Yeah.
And not something that we as a major city should have to rely upon, quite honestly.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, some of the massive events that have taken place in other major cities have been terrifying. I'll turn it over to the committee for questions. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Velazquez.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Saunier.
So my question in response to just what you mentioned about there being 2 folks in situations of emergency, is there an ideal number that you think that we should have in our city to be able to, I guess, how have 2 been operating? How's that been? And what's your ideal number if you could choose? What would that look like?
So what I put into my request is what I think would bring us to a good number, and that would be adding 4 emergency management specialists for a total of 5, as well as having a deputy commissioner to be able to support overall as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you.
Really, thank you. We appreciate you coming back, Commissioner, and your work really is so important. I wanted the committee to have an opportunity this morning, and we appreciate you bringing out your staff and all that you do to keep us safe.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will turn it over now to our building division. Just by way of reminder, we have a new commissioner, a new building commissioner. So we'll ask you to identify yourself, any staff members you have with you, give a brief overview of the responsibilities under the building division, and then we'll go through your budget. The building division is one of course, our most important departments that we rely on to keep our city safe and keep it moving forward and keep it building.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Wareham, the current building commissioner.
Congratulations.
All right. So the building division provides public safety via a comprehensive inspection program, utilizes effective enforcement of all the applicable codes and ordinances that we are assigned as it relates to new construction, repairs, rehabilitation of existing structures, safe occupancy of residential buildings, safe occupancy of commercial buildings. Building division also conducts plan review. It enforces the zoning ordinance. It issues permits, conducts inspections and investigations of all properties, demolishes dangerous and vacant buildings, and it also keeps all the vacant properties secured. So the overall building division's mission is for a safe environment for all those who live and work and visit the city of St. Louis. So a department overview that we've got is, of course, we intake various permit applications, and it's broad-based, it's trades, it's about everything you can think of, housing conservation, construction. And then we conduct all of these inspections in both residential and commercial. We do the plan review, part of the permit application process, regulate the land use throughout the city through the zoning code, inspect all existing properties for code compliance and safety. We also take in CSB requests and requests from elected officials and other city agencies. And the data I picked up earlier today is we received over 10,000 of the requests. And I think the building division has done over 174,000 inspections. This is new data picked up earlier.
Is that just for this year? 174,000?
174,000 separate inspections throughout the city.
Is that, that's just year-to-date, or?
It's up to this point in time. It's ever growing, of course. The numbers are ever changing. We're on pace to issue approximately 6,000 building permits, generating $6 million in revenue. We're on pace to issue more than 25,000 housing conservation certificates, which is an increase from last fiscal year, which will generate another $2.5 million. And as I said before, we're on pace to perform at least 180,000 inspections, not more. It's ever increasing. The proposed fiscal year budget for 25 at this point in time, $25.8 million. This is a $2.2 million increase from fiscal year 24, somewhere in that area. And that is related to the staff that we're moving to is 221 inside the building division. The staff we had in fiscal year 24 was 208, so it's additional 13 people, and that is stretched out through clerical, typist, additional inspectors for Prop NS, some of our board up people, and a few inspectors here and there. So the division has staffing needs associated also with new implementation of the STR legislation that's coming up shortly. And we're trying to work to create a smooth technological interface with both STL city permits and Granticus, I think is the name of the company. And we're looking forward to this new development in trying to streamline this process and enforce this STR legislation. Staffing. Staffing is difficult at this time, and we're like a lot of different divisions. We're short on staffing right now. Our top priority inside the department right now is to fill out all of the plan examiners. Normally, a full staff of plan examiners would be 5. Currently, I only have 1 full-time plan examiner, but I have a retired civil engineer who used to be a plan examiner, came back. He's working on a part-time basis right now. So we're also exploring emergency contracts with different architectural companies. I've called at least probably 10 of them. I've got some response. I've got some feedback on what they want on an hourly rate. And I've reached out to some former plan examiners to see if they'd like to come back on a performance, and they're thinking it over. In the meantime, we're going through the RFP process also. So we're trying to push for full-time staff, part-time staff, anything we need to get things back to a normal processing level. Currently, I'm 10 building inspectors short, and we put in some requisitions in May. That was immediately after the lifting of the hiring freeze. As I said before, we need some utility workers for our board up people, and those requisitions were also made in May. Our board up people are extremely busy, extremely busy. So that is an overview of everything, and I'll gladly try to answer all the questions from the committee that I can answer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, the software that you talked about with the short-term rentals.
Yes, ma'am.
It is called Granicus?
Granicus.
Okay. What is the cost of that software?
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $140,000.
$440,000 a year?
Yeah, it may fluctuate depending on if we want to expand the program, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000.
Okay. Have we already purchased that for this year?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Have we already purchased that?
No, ma'am. We're in the process of doing all that right now. We're in the process of integrating STL city permits and Granicus, talking back and forth and doing what they do. And so we're moving down the path right now.
Okay. Is that in our line item budget? Where's the $450,000 for that. Is that in the computer and tech system development?
We have some various funds in different parts for computer tech and systems development, and part of this is to get the permits, all the permits online. We've had some pretty astonishing data from our STL City permits that is showing the success of the program. And the success will continue when we get this other transition forward into the permits online. The 2023 transactions alone exceeded, well, it was a little under $4 million. It was paid by checks, by credit cards, by e-check, of course, things like that. So that resulted in, just through the totals of all these inspections, we did over 58,000 housing conservation inspections. I think it was about 12,000 vacant building inspections. The demo permits are going up. So the payments processed through STL City permits was a little under 55,000 payments processed through city permits. So expanding this is a priority for the building division, being proactive and trying to upgrade all of our systems. So that is part of the requested budget for computer and tech systems development throughout the fund.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I mean, it was my understanding, after this board worked really hard to get the short-term rental legislation passed, it was my understanding the building division didn't have the funds needed to purchase software to move forward with that.
In fiscal year 24, ma'am?
Correct.
Madam Chairwoman. We were trying to move some of the remaining funds around. I'm not sure. I have Deputy Commissioner Dylan Mosier here right now with me, who's working through all of this. I'm not sure if we actually purchased anything yet. Everything is in negotiation, and we're trying to move forward as quickly as we can. The company seems to be pretty willing to work with the city of St. Louis as far as just starting without being paid.
Okay.
So we're moving forward on that.
Well, it was an issue of very serious frustration for those of us who have a lot of short-term rentals. We have new legislation, and just to understand that the city was unable to move forward with that enforcement piece because of a lack of software. We want to make sure that you have it in your budget right now to purchase it and move forward as quickly as possible. We're now looking at, we're 7 months in, actually we're longer than that since we passed the bill, and we still haven't been able to move forward with it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Come on forward.
Deputy Commissioner, if you could just identify yourself for those folks at home, and for those of us who only know you by email and not necessarily by face.
Sure. Deputy Commissioner of Buildings, Dylan Mosier. So you were referencing sort of a stifling of us to be able to develop our tech system, probably referring to the previous commissioner, Oswald, speaking about not being able to build out STL City Permits, our website that we process all of our permit applications through. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to the fact that we were forward with enforcing the law that this body passed to regulate short-term rentals. And I guess I'm asking for some clarification. It was my understanding that we weren't start enforcing that, start moving forward with getting those permits because we didn't fund your division to do the work you needed to do to move it forward, or there was no funds identified to do that work. It was impossible to do.
Madam Chairwoman, I think.
So sorry, you'll have to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Madam Chairwoman, I think what we were referring to at that time frame was that we were moving down a path of having STL City Permits create this software or this program. And the requested funds at that time that we thought we were going to need from the previous commissioner was X amount of dollars, and we did not have the funds. And there was also some talk about not having the time to do this.
Okay.
We have since taken a separate path, a different path of sorts, and went with Granicus. Granicus already has this capability, and they serve various cities throughout the United States with this already. So they're able to move quickly and effectively forward with this, and they're also able to do it at a much reduced cost than what we had first anticipated.
Okay.
So with that being said, I think right now, the way today is, we are comfortable we have the money in place to move forward with Granicus, to integrate the system with STL city permits, and we should absolutely be able to start our enforcement in the calendar date of November when it kicks off.
Okay, that's very helpful. And so, but we don't have the cost associated with that. But you're comfortable that it will fit in this budget?
I am comfortable standing here today saying that we can move forward with this development of this program. I am truthfully going to have to do some shifting and reorganizing to make sure I have enough inspectors to fulfill this. I don't know the amount of inspection I'm going to need, inspection staff, boots on the ground, as they say, until the program kicks off, and then I really get a feel for everything.
Okay.
But as far as the program kicking off, as far as having the funds and moving forward with Granicus, I'm fairly comfortable right now saying that everything's okay.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. One thing that does have me concerned is that your total budgeted positions for fiscal year 2025 is actually just one, but it is actually less than your total budgeted positions for fiscal year 2024. And with these new responsibilities with the short-term rentals, there are cities that have full departments dedicated to short-term rental enforcement that include dozens of employees specifically and exclusively dedicated to short-term rental enforcement. We have saddled your office with an enormous undertaking to get this up and running and to enforce what has become a pretty significant industry in our city. And we want to make sure that you have the tools to do that additional work on top of the work that we already ask of your department. And it has me worried that your responsibilities have gone up and your staffing has gone down.
Well, in all honesty, the previous commissioner wasn't able to speak to these other cities that have this program. So now we have an understanding of various cities and their staffing that they currently have. Now, I am absolutely, I know money doesn't grow on trees, and the building division is trying to take the budget that's been given to us and try to do everything we can to make sure we function efficiently and effectively there. Now, with that being said, after we get into this and after we see what our challenges are, yes, next fiscal year we may come back and say we need additional inspectors, additional funding for this program. So right now I have essentially a giant question mark on, do I have the staff? Can I do this? And until it's up and running, I won't know what my challenges are. And I'm trying to be truthful to the committee.
Okay. When will it be up and running, Commissioner?
We are targeting everything up and running in November.
November. Okay.
November.
Okay. I'd like to now turn it. Do you have, before we go, turn over to the committee for questions, just real quickly, do you have areas, issues, specific line items that are extremely important to you that haven't been funded, that are red flags that we need to be aware of?
Well,
because our job is to make sure that to go through this and advocate for what you might need.
I know the committee's limited on its enforcement, or able to give additional funds in certain areas. One of the areas that we are concerned about, because we moved money around from the other funds, is that we spent essentially what we were given in fiscal year 23 for overtime. Now, the overtime a lot is based on all of the weekend and after-hours activity of our board-up people. Lately, when the police department goes out and they find a crime scene or they have a body, they like to get the building secured immediately. So these guys, they get called out all hours, 24/7. A lot of that overtime was consumed this past fiscal year. I will be that. If it's possible to get additional overtime money, yes, we would like to have that. We'd like to have it match fiscal year 23, and that amount was $117,000. But once again, when it's all said and done, the building division will take the funding they are allotted, and we will do everything we can to function efficiently and effectively.
Okay. Okay. Your budget here, Commissioner, just for clarity, you mentioned in your PowerPoint, you have a proposed budget of 25.8 million.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Your PowerPoint mentions a proposed budget of 25.8. I'm looking at the building.
Yeah, I think some of this data was put together by the previous commissioner, and I've come in the last 2 months, and there's been some adjustments. This was overall budget data that Frank had kind of preliminarily put together.
Okay. Because we're looking at our line item detail has a budget of 10.4 million for the budget division, and so that's a fairly large discrepancy here. What are we looking at? The building division. Total of all funds, okay.
So on anything that I can't answer today, I will gladly get back with this committee on, no doubt about that.
Okay.
If I could pinpoint my...
So we've got 10 million in the general fund, and then we've got these use tax and the other funds. Okay. Okay, and those are, that's because outside of the building division, we have the demolition and board. Those are also different funds, the housing conservation.
Yeah, they are,
absolutely.
they are separated between, I think, 4 or 5 different funds, as is the Prop NS fund that you'll find towards, I think, at the end of your sheet there.
Okay.
We have some of the demolition and board up fund coming out of the 1110 account.
Okay.
And I believe we have some coming out of, let's see, let me try to find it.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see, I got some other additional special demolition fund coming out of the 1111 account.
I'd like to turn it over to the committee for
With
questions now. Or,
additional funding out of the 1121 account. I'm sorry.
okay. Yeah, Commissioner, so you have the general fund, which handles the general operations of the building division, and then these special funds, the use tax fund. We've got the lead remediation fund, which is funded out of the building permits.
That's correct.
Section.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And by the way, if you haven't activated your residents on the lead remediation fund available, it's a great program to address lead in people's homes, whether you own them, whether you rent them. The city will put your families up in a hotel for 2 or 3 days while the city comes and remediates lead in your homes. It's a great way of
it's a great program.
making the houses of families who have kids that are exposed to lead safer, and to actually improve the overall state of the buildings. I have found it to be a really, really great program for residents with kids.
Absolutely.
So, and that's a really important one. We had very high lead rates in our city. We still have high rates of lead exposure, relatively speaking, in our kids. And so this is a way of a small percentage of the building permit fees goes into the lead remediation fund. And it's very important that we get these to where they need to be. So, okay, Commissioner, I would turn it over to the committee for questions now, starting with Alderwoman Boyd. Tuning in through the ether, Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman
Thank
Saunier. Okay.
I've got a, sorry. Just wanted to thank you, Commissioner Ware, for being here. Thank you, Dylan, our Deputy Commissioner. It's good to see you both outside of email. I have more of like a future question, I guess. In this new software that you've been talking about that you'll use for short-term rentals, Granicus, that have been emailing all of us in the city, I believe. Is there potential for other applications of that software? I mean, maybe not in this term. I know that short-term rental monitoring is no small task, but other integrations with different kinds of inspections or alerts.
Well, we're hoping so. I mean, we're talking with both Granicus and STL, Tim Ware with STL City Permits, about trying to expand their cooperation with each other. We're exploring different things that it could help us with. I couldn't give you a detailed answer to that right now, unfortunately, but we'll gladly keep you in the loop on any progress we make in that.
That would be great. I just think, you know, obviously, like my colleagues have said, your division has an enormous job and responsibility, and you do hundreds of thousands of inspections. But it seems like if there is some more automation, you know, some of that more like, not technical stuff, but just automation with alerts and whatnot, it might help the workload of the staff and also just create fill in some gaps where we have, I think, with sometimes
absolutely.
things
The
don't
building,
happen.
I'm sorry.
It's dependent on humans. No, I was just gonna say, just in the automation piece, because, you know, we are humans and, you know, we forget things on like a computer, so.
Yes, ma'am. The building division's a very complex department. It's got a lot of moving parts, and we're trying to organize it and modernize it. And we're trying to move forward, and we're trying to share all of this modernization with not just the legislative people inside this building, all the older people, but with the citizens. So we're doing everything we can to do that, to be transparent and to be modern and to be efficient.
Great. Well, that's all I have, sir. Thank you for all your questions or answers.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Always nice to see you.
All right, good to see you again.
Yes, I want to thank you. You know, you came to the 7th Ward Town Hall, and many of the groups in many of the neighborhoods were very excited to get a chance to talk to the building division directly, and we were able to have a really, what I think was a constructive and helpful dialogue around some of the processes and systems. I kind of generally feel the same about just many of you all. I think, you know, like I have a lot of questions, and I think these things come up amongst us at committee meetings, but I think a lot of times you all are just trying to do the best to bring like just systems that are really outdated and processes that are really outdated. You're trying to bring that into 21st century and into 2024 while dealing with staffing and dealing with budgetary limits. And so, I mean, I would just say in my engagement with you, I think you're doing a good job. I don't think it's necessarily going to be easy. I do have some concerns. There are some things in your budget, you know, like to me, just having one full-time planning examiner.
It's hard. And it's not just me, and I thank you for the compliment, but it's a team approach inside of the department. Everybody is doing their best to do their job and go beyond that. So it's strictly a team effort inside the department right now.
Yeah, I just hope that we can have conversations about whatever we could do, because I know you and I have talked about, and even now I was just looking at an email where folks are kind of applying for permits and asking like, what's taking so long and where am I? And, you know, what I will say, the reason why I was complimentary is because whenever I follow up and send emails to anyone in your department or call, people are very responsive. They will find what I'm looking for right away. You know, it's not for a lack of work ethic, right, at all. It's just for just a lot at once. I just think I would say, like, I don't think your budget has everything that you need to meet the demands. I think one full-time planning examiner is, I mean, to me, that seems just not up to par with what I know your demand will be. I know we've talked before about having people coming in and applying for various different permits through you all, and that taking a long time. And I don't know if I'm missing it, but I don't see it. I also think we're trying to talk about like what is the solutions here. And I've tried to lift up a couple times. Like I think we really need to look at, I don't know, salaries and just whatever we can to fill the positions.
Salaries is an issue. We're going to have to get some partnership with the Department of Personnel. One of the problems we have with the plan exams positions that are opened up is we don't get any applicants. The starting salary is extremely low compared to what these design professionals are making throughout the area. And that salaries is another reason why most of my seasoned inspectors, once we train them, get them up to par, we're almost a training ground, City of St. Louis, and then they move on to another community, and then we start all over again.
Yeah.
The City of St. Louis provides a lot of hardcore training for a lot of different departments, and then unfortunately we lose a lot of talented people. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, and I think just on my end, whatever I can do to offer support, it's interesting because all the salary conversations are kind of between you all and the Director of Personnel and maybe the Civil Service Commission, so it doesn't leave us much room. But obviously, I think we have a real on the ground, look at how it's impacting people's everyday experiences when we don't have the staffing that we need. So I think that we would advocate for you to have whatever you need. And I think in your department, especially, we talk about architectural engineers and different folks that can go other places and make six figures walking into the door, at least for us to be competitive with other public sectors and other neighboring municipalities. I don't hold the vision to compete with the private sector, but I even just looked at like your positions and what other cities and what neighboring, just Richmond Heights, just you see to just go right over what they're saying. And I mean, it would be $20,000, $30,000 more in some cases. So just whatever we could do to look at that and support you in that. A lot of that I think will come from your all's department leadership.
Appreciates that, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Alderman Aldrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. No real questions, just want to thank you. And I've had the opportunity to work with your deputy, Dylan, under the previous Commissioner, Frank, we all love. So got some big shoes to fill, but I've only heard great, amazing things about you and looking forward to get to know you and figure out how we can work together for the betterment of the city.
I apologize. Since I had a COVID thing, I have a little bit of a hearing loss. I'm so sorry.
No, there was no question. It was just more of saying, I appreciate you. I appreciate your staff.
Absolutely.
You got big shoes to fill from Frank, and I look forward to working with you to do good stuff for the city of St. Louis.
It's a team effort. It's a team effort.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Right? Just kidding. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. We're grateful you're here. If you could help us just make sure that we know the costs, that you have everything you need on that front. And again, I think it's really important to recognize that you're doing more with less staff.
Yeah, it's concerning. As I said, I inherited this a little bit. Frank started piecing it together. So that's good, and we're gonna just charge forward. And next year may be different. I may be here with my beggar's clothes on, asking for money. So
yeah, I mean, one of the other issues I've been hearing about is you talked about Alderwoman Saunier was asking about some of the salaries, and I have been understanding that some of our senior professional staff, the architects, the plan reviewers who are aging out of their positions, we're going to have a very difficult time replacing them. We're having a difficult time filling those roles.
we are, Madam Chair. Just off the top of my head, and don't quote me on the price, the starting incoming salary for a lot of these plan examiners are 20 some odd dollars, when in the industry, I think the minimum that I had researched was about 60. So there's a tremendous gap there. Some of the contractual work that we're getting quotes on are substantially high. So it would benefit the city of St. Louis if the Department of Personnel could sit down and work with us on some changes to a couple of these salary positions. It would be wise for the city to move forward with that, to adjust themselves.
Can you help us identify some of those priority positions? Because this committee not only oversees the budget, but we also have under our purview the public employees. And, you know, it is really important to us that you have the professional staff you need to make sure that when we're going into these buildings, that we're, you know, when we're reviewing plans, that this isn't just for today, tomorrow, it's for our lifetimes. These buildings stand, house people, our residents and businesses in them for our entire lifetimes.
Absolutely. Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my priority right now is all of these plan exam positions inside our department. And I have different things in my mind that needs to be looked at. And I can share them with you if you're part of the, you know, I can do that later on.
Well, we would be happy to advocate for setting for your department, you know, and requesting our personnel department to sit down with the building division. You serve such an important role, and we want to make sure that you have the staff, the professional staff that you need to do the job that we ask you.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
That would be wonderful.
Any other follow-ups from our committee? We appreciate you being accommodating on the late start here this morning as we were juggling a few other things going on through our committee process.
Well, thank you to the committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. And congratulations on your new role. With that, Madam Clerk, do we have any other orders of business today?
No.
Members of the committee, have any announcements? I'm just kidding. We don't normally do them, but if you have some, you're welcome to display. Oh, yeah. You do? Alderman from the 7th.
I think relevant to what we talked about today, tomorrow, Committee of the Whole meeting, Director Gray is going to come in and talk to us about ways that we could potentially use the RAM settlement money to help with compensation of our employees. So that just might be something to put on folks' radar to come and talk about and have some questions ready.
Director Gray will also be coming before the Budget Committee tomorrow, I believe, at 11 o'clock. Is that right? Yes. Okay, so with that, I will, unless the Alderman from the 14th.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hearing no objections, the Budget and Public Employees Committee hearing is adjourned. Okay.